Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to math. The last few classes we've been covering polar form and rectangular form. Okay, we started off with rectangular form where we had A plus BI. Okay, we have rectangular form where we have A plus BI, and then we went into polar form. Okay, polar form was R times cosine theta plus I sine theta. Okay. Today we're going to continue working on that. Okay. We're going to go from polar form to rectangular form. The only difference is today we have two problems. Okay. We have to solve for those problems first to leave it in rectangular form. Okay. Then polar form so we can convert it. The two problems are technically already in rectangular form. I mean, not rectangular, polar form, but we have to combine. Okay, meaning that the two polar forms, which is the first one times the second one, okay, equals multiply the two r's, r1 and r2. Okay, because remember the polar form has an r, so if you have two problems of the same, r1 and then r2, cosine the thetas of 1 and 2 we add them, and the sine we add them, okay, when we multiply, okay, meaning that if I have, where's my rag, here we go, if I have a problem like this, just use purple. If my problem is Z1, okay, our first problem, equals 4 parentheses cosine of 60 degrees plus I sine of 60 degrees, okay? Our second problem is Z2 equals 2 parentheses cosine of 30 degrees plus I sine of 30 degrees. Okay, it have to be the same. Meaning on the same problem it has to be cosine and sine the same thing. Okay. Alright, so now that we have this problem, okay, we have two equations to deal with. Again, if you guys remember, in order to combine them, to multiply them, we have to multiply the r's. So we have 4 as one r and 2 as the other r. So we can say 4 times 2, okay, for r's. Let's use black. And then we use our parentheses, cosine of, remember, theta 1 and theta 2, we add them. So we're going to say, another color, 60 plus 30 plus I sine, and then our sines, which in this case is 60 plus 30. Okay, and then we do a little bracket. Alright, now that our problem looks more like this. It's no longer these two. Now it's just one big problem. All we have to do is combine them. 4 times 2 is 8. Okay. Then we have our parentheses. Cosine. Remember, 60 plus 30 is what? 90, right? So we have 90 plus I sine of, again, 60 plus 30, again, is 90. Okay, now it kind of looks like just one problem. Okay, now it just looks like a polar form. Okay, remember, we're not looking for polar form, all we're looking for is rectangular form. So what we're going to do is, wherever cosine of 90, whatever cosine is for 90, we're going to plug that in. Whatever sine is for 90, we're going to plug that in. You might ask yourself, how do we know what 90 is? It doesn't matter if you have a degree or a radius, okay? The radius for 90, or the radiant for 90, is pi over 2. So if you were dealing with cosine pi over 2 plus I sine pi over 2, or 90 degrees, doesn't matter. They're both the same, okay? You still have to find cosine for that degree or that radiant, and sine for that degree or that radiant, okay? In this case, we're dealing with 90. Remember, cosine and sine, we have cosine 0 and sine is 1. So we can say 8 cosine of, again, it was 0, plus I sine of 1. Okay, in this case, now that we have that, we have to distribute, okay? We have to distribute the 8 into that 1. When we distribute in there, we no longer, since we converted, technically we really don't need cosine and sine when we convert them. Okay, but technically we need the I, but not the sine. Okay, so 8 times 0 is just 0, plus 8 times 1 is 8i. Okay, since 0 is just 0, technically your answer is 8i. So your rectangular form is 8i. Okay, because the 0 disappears. So we converted from, we actually solved from 2 equations, combined it into 1. Then we solved for that equation into polar form. Then we converted it into a rectangular form. Okay, so we did a few steps in there. We solved it, we combined it, we solved it, we converted it into polar form, then into rectangular form. Alright, let's do one more. I'm not going to keep the equation anymore either, because technically you guys sure have it on your notes. Alright guys, so our next problem is we have, let's take one from here. Let's go with 2 cosine pi over 2 plus I sine pi over 2, because remember, it has to be the same number. And then the other one is another 2 cosine of 3 pi over 2 plus I sine of 3 pi over 2. Okay? Alright. Now, again, the first step is we have to combine the r's, okay? Which in this case we have 2 times 2, because it's 2 r's. 2 times 2 is 4. Cosine. Keep in mind, you can do it with radicals. Okay, you can combine the radicals using fractions, or you can convert them into degrees for now. It's up to you. Okay, I feel like some of you have a little more trouble with fractions. So what we're gonna do is we'll convert it into actual degrees. Okay, so pi over 2 is 90. Okay, and 3 pi over 2, if we look at our unit circle, if we look for 3 pi over 2, we look at down here, it's 270 degrees. Okay, so 270 degrees. So we have cosine of 90 plus 270, okay, plus I sine of 90 plus 270. Okay. Now that we have that, again, we can combine it. We can say 4 cosine of 90 plus 270 is 360. Okay. Plus I sine of 360. I don't need the other one somewhere. Now that we know what degree we're looking for, we can actually go back to our unit circle. Remember, you really need this unit circle. You need to memorize it. The better you memorize it, the easier it is for you to convert it and faster. Okay? So if you look at 360, we have again 1 for cosine, 0 for sine. So we have 4, and then we no longer need cosine, because remember, we're going to convert it. 4 cosine of 360 is, we said it was 1 plus I sine of 360, which sine is 0, which technically we really don't need the sine. So all we need to know is 4 times 1 and 4 times 0 I. Okay? Keep in mind, since 0 and I are two different numbers, technically we do not have the 0 anymore. So technically your answer would be 4 times 1 is 4 plus I. Okay? Because I and 0 are two different things. One's imaginary, one's real. The real number cancels out, but you still have the imaginary number in there. Okay? So 4 plus I will be your answer. Alright. So make sure you have this on your notes. Alright, what's the eraser? Alright, so here's your problems for today. Alright, for number 1, we have 4 cosine of pi over 3 plus I sine of pi over 3 times 7 cosine 2 pi over 3 plus I sine of 2 pi over 3. Okay, that's the first one. Let's do one more for the practice. We're going to have 5 cosine pi plus I sine pi. And then 2 cosine 3 over 4 plus I sine 3 pi over 4. Okay? Alright. Make sure you solve for both of these problems. Okay? So we have 3 pi over 4 here. We have pi here. We have a 5 on the outside, a 2 on the bottom. Alright, make sure you submit your answers as soon as you're done watching the video. And I'll be here waiting for your email.